Sorry, let's have a chat, but let's record this.
It's being recorded.
Oh, I know, but like, let's make an episode out of this if you want.
An
The
episode.
idea of impartiality versus advocacy, if you want to. This
Do you
Venn
want to do it?
diagram.
Do you want to do it right now?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Hello, I'm Deborah Sword.
Hi, I'm Tyson Banker.
We have been having the most interesting conversation about the difference between advocacy and impartiality and how,
We have.
yeah, and how can, for example, I, who is a conflict manager, how could I become involved as somebody who advocates for a particular point of view or position on a social justice issue? And you have some thoughts on that, Tyson.
Yeah, I'm really curious to know how one might balance both of these things, or if you can, because as we were discussing, there's within for the being impartial to things, and as a conflict mediator, you have to take many different sides and see the various values and opinions that people are coming with, where they disagree and where they agree. Um, and some might say that no, you need to be also advocating for for what is the most just and most right thing. And then I would be curious to know your thoughts about how does that impact being impartial? This idea that advocacy um, is can be at the um, I guess diluting impartiality. Or also, what it happens if someone who wants to be an advocate really wants to try and be impartial? Can you?
Some can. So let's parse that out. First of all, let's make the point that we're using the word impartiality, not neutrality, because nobody is neutral. We all have
Mm,
biases, we all have blind spots, we all have stereotypes, and it is disingenuous to pretend we don't. There is no such thing as neutrality. But to be impartial means to recognize all of that, that I have biases and blind spots and preferences, and there are certain causes that I believe in and will defend. So let's use, for example, when I was a criminal defense lawyer, I defended a lot of men on sexual assault charges. And when people said to me, how can you defend those people? It was really easy to say, well, I believe in due process and everyone is entitled to their day in court and to have their case presented before a trier of fact and to be presumed innocent until found guilty. And there was no conflict of interest in my mind between the fact that I find sexual assault horrible and abhorrent
hmm
and that these people were entitled to a defense. There was no conflict in my mind in that. So there are certain places where impartiality and advocacy can coexist. And there are certain people who are very skilled at impartiality who are also advocates for certain causes. Here's where the line gets confusing. And that's when somebody is convinced that they are correct and will not listen to another point of view
mm,
so that they are an advocate for one position and one position only, and then still try to be impartial.
right.
So I am not in a position where I can say with absolute certainty that this is the only right way of being in the world. And this is the oppressor, and this is the victim, and there is no dispute about that. The facts are clear. And then I'm going to ask, would it be helpful if I did? If this is the oppressor and this is the victim, beyond a shadow of a doubt, then what?
Because I think it means that you're, especially if you see it that way, and you're trying to advocate for someone who's been unjustly wronged, but then also say, let's be impartial about this. It really does a disservice to the person who's being oppressed or the victim, because how are you then actually helping support them if you're saying, trying to sort of both sides it?
Well, it is it possible to uplift a
Right.
victim without also working with the oppressor? And
Yeah.
some of the best work that's being done right now is, yes, we are supporting victims of rape, and we're working with the rapists so that they can become peer support for other people who are in jail, and we can change the behavior of the rapist. Because to just support the victim without also trying to change the structures of oppression also does a disservice. So my North Star, my role model, Nelson Mandela, who understood clear oppressor, clear victim, and was prepared to work with both from a position of forgiveness. And Bishop Desmond Tutu, another one,
Mm-hmm.
so deserving of the Nobel Peace Prize. So I, yes, it would be lovely if I always knew who was right and who had
Mm-hmm.
social justice on their side and who was the absolute oppressor and who also felt aggrieved and oppressed. But I can't make that claim. I can only do the best I can in a way that makes sense to me with the
Mm-hmm.
information I have. So if I had to choose between advocacy and impartiality, I'm going to go with
Mm-hmm.
impartiality because that's where I can do the most good,
Right. That's where your skills. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
except one, and that's climate change. With
Mm-hmm.
climate change,
Interesting.
I'm an advocate. We need to do something very, very positive and dramatic for climate change because we're all going to suffer and we'll
So
suffer.
then it's so then I'm imagining that your advocacy for climate change, which is very real, supersedes the ability for you to be able to say, let's hold a dialogue about with people who are on varying sides of this issue, and going, for you it might be difficult to go, I'm going to be the mediator and be impartial mediator about this.
Not with
Not going to
dialogue.
happen.
No, no, you're
I'm curious. Yeah.
partially correct.
Okay,
I
partially.
would absolutely convene that dialogue because
Mm,
the CEOs of the oil and gas companies and the fossil fuel industries are on board. They
right.
acknowledge climate change is happening. They acknowledge that burning fossil fuels is the major cause, blah, blah, blah. So that dialogue could be very productive
Mm-hmm.
because the environmentalists, some of the higher level
Mm-hmm.
environmentalists are prepared to work with the oil and gas industry to say, how do we change practices? How do we reduce fossil
Mm-hmm.
fuel consumption? The fossil fuel industries are getting into non-renewable resources. They're
Mm-hmm.
creating solar panels, they're doing wind energy, they're reducing flaring, they're really
Yeah.
reducing. So that dialogue has happened. I
Right.
can
So
advocate.
it could
Yeah,
be productive, a productive
absolutely.
environment for sure for you
Absolutely.
to, yeah.
And that's a case where dialogue has moved the needle.
Yeah,
Has it moved it
absolutely.
far enough? No,
Hmm.
no,
Hmm.
we need more policies, but
Hmm.
mostly we need more people on the grassroots changing their behavior. So here's where conflict owners manual is part of this discussion. Conflict owners manual is not about impartiality. Conflict owners
Hmm.
manual is about pumping these skills out into the world so that everybody has access to them. It is advocacy. Conflict Owners Manual is advocacy for everybody to be conflict competent because it improves the quality of relationships. And if it improves the quality of relationships, then our communities are stronger, our interactions are healthier. So, Tyson, you and I are doing advocacy with every podcast episode. That's where my advocacy and my impartiality coexist.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Thanks so much, Deborah, for indulging me in this really great conversation. I think it's always something to kind of noodle on and think about on those micro scale and macro. And so, really appreciate you sharing. And if you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And we will see you next week.
Thank you. Thanks, Tyson.